Today I'm going to harvest compost from around the homestead. I'm John, and this is Frugal Off-Grid.
Time for a change up. From this old routine, forget all the breakups and breakdowns and all the baggage from when we were kids. It's time for somewhere new, where it's summertime all year long. Somewhere where the kids can play and the dogs can run. Feel free without.
I just moved the compost pile, and I'm gonna pile up a bunch of compost over here. We're gonna start a whole new thing. Just bring in all the stuff that's been out all winter.
So let's align these ties and leave this town. We can drive on out if we leave right now. There's nothing left for us round here but the same old bars with the same old beers. And I believe that you and I deserve a little more than just getting by. So why do you say to somewhere new? I ain't got time, honey. All I need is you. It's time for a shake-up. Time for a new routine. Forget all the big talk from this small town and chase a dream we've had since we were kids. So why do you say? Is it time for a change? So let's align these ties and leave this town. We can drive on out if we leave right now. There's nothing left for us round here but the same old bars with the same old beers. And I believe that you and I deserve a little more than just getting by. So why do you say to somewhere new? I ain't got time, honey. All I need is you. You know we got this. So let's light these ties and burn this town. I ain't got time to mess it around. There's nothing left for us round here but the same damn bars with the same damn beers. And I believe that you and I deserve a little more than just getting by. So why do you say to somewhere new? I ain't got time, honey. All I need is you. All I need is you. No, we got this.
I've been building my own soil on the homestead since I moved out here. It's been about 3 years now. When I moved out here, I learned that the native soil is alkaline, and it's best to add a lot of organic matter, which will add nutrient density and balance out the pH level of the soil. I moved off grid with nearly nothing, so buying a large amount of soil really didn't seem like a frugal or intelligent move. And I started to build my own soil with what I had. And what I had on the land was the native soil and a lot of cow pies. So I walked around and I collected 2 wheelbarrows full of cow pies and soaked them down and mixed them into the native soil. And that's how I started my first compost and my original soil. The fastest source to improving my soil came in the form of rabbit manure. So I did have chickens before rabbits, but rabbit manure can be used right away, and it's considered golden, top-notch, balanced NPK soil that can be used right away. Chicken manure was fine, but, they didn't create a huge amount, and it did need to be composted, and even if you make tea, you want to let it sit for a week before you use it so it's not too hot and doesn't cause damage. The real blessing was when I got my pigs. They started to turn out a lot of manure. Problem is, pig manure needs to really be composted like 6 months to be safe. And so as much as I was getting, I just wasn't able to use it as fast. And then finally, a great addition to my manure was goats, because goat manure actually can be used a lot faster. I think I've heard that manure that comes out round, like rabbit manure and goat manure, I believe the goat can be used right away, but I composted mine always for 2 or 3 months before using it in my garden. Once I was starting to crank out a decent amount of manure, I had to figure out what to do with it. Initially, I started to just clean out the pens and toss it over the back of the fence and started manure piles back there. But that became kind of a mess, and I didn't want the animals in it. And the next thing I started to do was I had the idea that if I built up compost around my hoop house, it'd help to heat it, especially during the winter. And I found that it really didn't break down quite as fast as I'd want it to do to really do that. It probably helps a little bit. But mostly it just is a nice, neat little place that I can put compost, and it breaks down for 6 months over the winter, and then I start to pile it up, and at that point I can use that to break down into compost to turn into my soil. I haven't really done anything with the gardens that I'll start in spring, such as the hugelkulturs and the raised bed you can see there on the side of the chicken coop. But because I have a hoop house to the right there and a geothermal greenhouse that's temperature's finely regulated behind that, a few weeks back, I grabbed my nicest compost and soil biochar mixture that I've made, and I put a few inches down on all of the beds that I can actually plant seed in now, which I've already done. And upon doing that, I realized, hey, I just cut down I have like a nice usable compost pile right now, and I had used at least half of that. And I thought, well, I better get working on harvesting my annual compost pile, because I always have a pile that sits out over the entire winter. So now I can start to harvest all of that really good compost to replace the nice compost that I already used up. I'll be able to put down a few inches of really good soil on top of all of my hugelkulturs, and I can add even some more to the raised bed, which I already filled up pretty good. But that afterwards will allow me to go over to the pig pens, and the goat pen, and the chicken coop. Even the chicken coop, I leave deep manure all winter to help add heat inside, and that really does make a difference. But I can clean out all of those areas and now pile all of that compost up around the edges of the hoop house and the chicken coop. And I still have a huge mountain of compost around the hoop house. I'm just not going to remove that yet because I want it to warm up before I pull the plastic off of the hoop house. It's been really cool to have systems in place and then to watch them develop, and now have a system that I didn't necessarily know exactly how it was going to work, but have a system in place now that does work. And I'm really churning out way more soil than I technically need at this point. All this compost to improve the soil. And what that means is that I can potentially start to go out and distribute some more out in that area where I plan to start an orchard, or I can start a much larger area. I was thinking to do maybe 5 or 10 rows of 30-inch deep, 30-foot long rows, which are pretty standard. That way you can buy little hoops for them and cover them, to help with winter crops and all those kind of things. And I don't know, it's just exciting to be able to crank out additional resources, more than I need. And we'll see where it goes from there.
Now I have somewhere nice to clean up the pig pen here. I've got another pig pen over here with a couple males in it. And then this goat pen over here. I'll get a lot of manure out of these and some broken down hay and straw. Then I can bring that out and build it up around the chicken coop and let it sit till next year, or whenever I'm ready for it, at least 6 months probably. And once it warms up a little more, I'll be able to pull up all of this here and throw that in there. I covered the bed here because this stuff was so far along, I figured I may as well just toss it in there. I won't start growing in here until mid-March probably. And same with that Hugo culture and these 2 Hugo cultures. So I'll let the compost break down a little while longer, and then when it's time I can cover all of these with some fresh soil. Hopefully you like my compost system for my little farmstead in the middle of nowhere. If you want to snag a cart like that, that's a 1,400 pound cart. I think you can tell it's really built well. There's a link down below. It's by Vevor. Vevor builds tough tools for half price. For a limited time, you can get my books on my website for half off. You get all 3, 50% off. And if you want to find and buy land that's similar to mine, you can finance land for as little as $200 a month. Just check out the links below, and you can save 10% off of your property with my code DLFrugal10. Leave a comment if you got questions, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.
Time for a new routine. Forget all the big talk from the small town and chase